Mansa Musa, born in 1280, likely grew up in a royal or noble environment, though details about his early life are largely lost to history. As a child in the Mali Empire, he would have been immersed in a world defined by West African traditions, trade, and the growing influence of Islam. Musa's childhood would have revolved around the education of a noble family, which included not only learning the arts of governance, diplomacy, and military strategy but also a deep religious education, as Islam was becoming more prominent in the region. Given his connection to the royal court, Musa may have observed the workings of the empire from an early age. He likely spent time with scholars, warriors, and court officials, learning about the diverse cultures and lands that formed the sprawling Mali Empire. His upbringing would have prepared him for leadership, even if it wasn't guaranteed that he would one day become emperor. Mali's rulers often chose their successors from a pool of trusted nobles or family members, and Musa's eventual ascension suggests he gained significant experience and respect during his youth. As a young man, he likely traveled both within the empire and perhaps even beyond, familiarizing himself with the trade routes that would one day make him extraordinarily wealthy. These early experiences would have shaped his understanding of the world and prepared him for his future role as emperor, where his leadership would be characterized by both pragmatic governance and a commitment to the Islamic faith. His early exposure to the empire's resources, coupled with his education, made him an exceptional ruler, capable of managing the vast wealth and power that awaited him. Mansa Musa, the emperor of the Mali Empire in the 14th century, is widely regarded as one of the richest individuals in history. His reign from 1312 to 1337 left an indelible mark on West Africa, and his wealth, particularly in gold, became legendary across the known world. To fully understand the life of Mansa Musa and how he attained such immense wealth, we must explore the historical, geographical, and economic context of the Mali Empire, along with the man himself. The rise of Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa, born in 1280, ascended the throne in 1312 after his predecessor, Mansa Abubakar II, embarked on an ambitious and ultimately unsuccessful voyage across the Atlantic, seeking new lands. With nowhere to return, Musa, a distant relative and trusted official, was chosen as his successor. His early life is not well documented, but by the time he became emperor, Musa had already established a reputation as a shrewd and capable leader. When Musa took the throne, the Mali Empire was already vast, stretching across parts of modern-day Senegal, Mauritania, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Guinea, and the Ivory Coast. However, it was during his reign that the empire reached its zenith in terms of territory, influence, and, most notably, wealth. Central to this wealth was the abundant natural resources of West Africa, particularly gold and salt. Gold and the wealth of Mali. Mansa Musa's Mali was situated along the Niger River and possessed some of the richest gold mines in the world. Two of the most important gold-producing regions, Bambouk and Bor, were under his control. The mines of Bambouk, located in modern-day Mali and Senegal, were some of the most productive in the world. They churned out vast quantities of gold that made its way through trans-Saharan trade routes to North Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. The salt mines of Tagaza, in the Sahara Desert, were equally important. Salt was an essential commodity in West Africa, used not only for preserving food but also as a valuable trade item. Salt was traded pound for pound with gold, which made it an essential element of the Mali Empire's economy. Mansa Musa effectively controlled both the supply of salt and gold by dominating the trade routes that linked West Africa to the Mediterranean and the Arab world. He ensured that the wealth of his empire grew exponentially. He imposed taxes on the caravans of traders who passed through his territories, collecting vast sums of gold in return for safe passage. This wealth, in turn, allowed him to consolidate his power and expand his empire further. The Hajj, display of wealth. Mansa Musa's wealth was most famously displayed during his pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324, an event that cemented his reputation as the richest man in history. Undertaking the Hajj is a religious obligation for all Muslims who are able, and Musa, being a devout Muslim, embarked on the journey. What set his pilgrimage apart, however, was the sheer scale and opulence of his caravan. Musa did not travel alone. He was accompanied by a retinue of tens of thousands, including soldiers, officials, scholars, merchants, and slaves. Reports from the time suggest that his caravan consisted of 60,000 men, including 12,000 slaves who each carried gold bars. He also brought along 80 camels, each loaded with anywhere from 50 to 300 pounds of gold dust. In addition, Mansa Musa was said to distribute gold generously along the way, giving it to the poor, building mosques, and gifting it to the rulers of the regions he passed through. His generosity, while well-intentioned, had some unintended consequences. In cities such as Cairo, Medina, and Mecca, Musa's lavish gifts of gold caused a significant devaluation of the metal, leading to a period of inflation that took years to recover from. In Cairo, he reportedly spent so much gold that the local economy was disrupted for over a decade. The stories of Mansa Musa's wealth spread far and wide. Word of his pilgrimage reached Europe, where he was featured on the famous Catalan Atlas of 1375. European mapmakers, unfamiliar with the details of West Africa, depicted him as a king holding a large nugget of gold, cementing his image as the wealthiest ruler in the world. Cultural and religious legacy. While Musa is primarily remembered for his wealth, his reign had a lasting impact on the culture and religion of West Africa. Upon returning from his pilgrimage, Musa brought with him a number of scholars, architects, and artisans from the Islamic world, particularly from Egypt and the Arabian Peninsula. Among them was the renowned architect Ishaq al-Toyjin, who is credited with designing several of the most famous buildings in Timbuktu and Gao, including the Jingerber Mosque. Timbuktu, in particular, flourished under Musa's patronage. The city became a major center of Islamic learning, attracting scholars, poets, and theologians from across the Muslim world. Musa established the Sankar University, which housed one of the most impressive libraries of the era, containing hundreds of thousands of manuscripts. The intellectual and religious life of Mali flourished, with Timbuktu becoming a beacon of Islamic scholarship. Mansa Musa also built numerous mosques across his empire, many of which stood as symbols of his devotion to Islam and his desire to spread the religion throughout his realm. His embrace of Islam helped to further integrate the Mali Empire into the wider Muslim world, facilitating trade and diplomatic relations with other Muslim states, administration, and expansion. Mansa Musa was not only a wealthy emperor but also an able administrator. He divided his empire into provinces, each governed by a trusted official who answered directly to him. He also maintained a standing army that protected the trade routes and ensured the safety of his realm. Under his leadership, the Mali Empire expanded its borders, absorbing new territories and peoples. Musa's army was instrumental in maintaining control over these regions, as well as in repelling potential invaders. His empire extended to the Atlantic coast, where he established strong trade links with the Berber traders of North Africa and the Arab merchants who crossed the Sahara. The Mali Empire, under Musa's reign, became a vital hub of commerce and culture. The gold and salt trade continued to flourish, and cities like Timbuktu, Gao, and Jen became centers of wealth and learning. Later life and death. Mansa Musa ruled for 25 years, overseeing a period of extraordinary prosperity and cultural development. By the time of his death in 1337, the Mali Empire was one of the largest and wealthiest empires in the world. His death marked the beginning of a slow decline for the empire, as his successors struggled to maintain the vast territories and the wealth that Musa had accumulated. Despite this, the legacy of Mansa Musa lived on. His contributions to Islamic culture and learning, along with his legendary wealth, continued to be remembered for centuries. Even today, Mansa Musa is often invoked as a symbol of Africa's rich history and its central role in global trade and culture during the medieval period. The legacy of Mansa Musa's wealth. Mansa Musa's wealth has become the stuff of legend, often portrayed in contemporary discussions as an almost mythical level of prosperity. The source of his immense fortune lay primarily in the abundant natural resources of West Africa, particularly its gold mines. His ability to control the trade routes, impose taxes, and expand his empire allowed him to amass a fortune that was unmatched in his time. In modern economic terms, attempts to quantify his wealth often place him at the top of lists of the richest people of all time. Some estimates suggest that, adjusted for inflation, Mansa Musa's fortune would have been equivalent to over $400 billion today. However, such estimates are imprecise, given the vast differences between medieval and modern economies. Nevertheless, Mansa Musa's reign is remembered, not just for its wealth but for the cultural and religious flowering it brought to West Africa. Through his patronage of Islamic learning and architecture, his establishment of diplomatic and trade ties with the wider Muslim world, and his expansion of the maliempire, Mansa Musa left a lasting impact on history. His legacy endures in the architectural marvels of Timbuktu, the manuscripts of Sankar, and the stories of his legendary pilgrimage to Mecca. In the lores of history, Mansa Musa is a figure who represents the heights of wealth and power, a king whose empire was built on gold, but whose true legacy lies in the cultural and religious achievements that he left behind.